So are you looking for a unique way of recording your Christmas memories this holiday season? Today I want to share with you a simple collage project that I'm using some of my favorite holiday papers, and it's just a way that we can get our thoughts down and in a creative way be able to remember and capture all those Christmas memories. So let's get started. So we're going to start this project by choosing out a few of our favorite papers. I'm using a collection from Simply Stated Designs. This came in their Advent box collection. The Advent box was basically 25 days of projects and paper and ephemera and other things that you could use to make projects of your own, as well as having a few self-guided projects in the box. And so it comes with a ton of different paper. These are some of the papers that were in those envelopes for these first few days. I have not opened all of them. I'm really good about waiting and making sure that I wait and open every envelope every day. But it came with these beautiful 6x6 paper designs. And I thought it'd be really fun to create as a collage in my art journal. So I'm going to cut these down to 6x6, and then we're going to play around with how we're going to add these into our collage. So now that I've cut these papers down to 6x6, I can make a choice about which ones I want in my collage. And this collage is going to be quite a bit different than most of the collages I do. Most of the collages I've done in the past, you'll notice that it has a lot of ripped paper. Today, I'm going to cut all of my paper, and I'm going to cut it down to a particular size. When I create my own art journals, if I'm having a 9x6 art journal, I cut the paper a little bit smaller. So we really have 8 3/4. So that's going to be 4 3/8 is going to be my center area. And I kind of actually want to stick to a center area with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start playing around with angles and figuring out how much paper I want to have on this page, because I would like to have a lot of straight lines, but what I want to do is actually do it in strips coming out from a central area. So this requires a little bit of math and a little bit of work. So the easiest way to do this is using my circle and angle maker. And if you haven't checked out my video on circle and angle maker, this thing is a fabulous tool. So I want to put everything at 0, and at the bottom of the paper, you want to add in your first angle. So I have 90 degrees of angle. So the question is, do I want 3 perfectly equidistant pieces? In this case, I don't. I want to try to add in a little bit of variation. So one that's 20 degrees, one that's 40 degrees, and one that's 30 degrees for this one side. And then for this, I'm going to basically just take my ruler, now that I've figured out my angle, and I'm going to just do it like so. And that area has a larger area than I actually really want for this. So what I'm going to do is, again, line this up at 0. I'm going to add in a couple more little angles to this, because I do want this to have a lot of variation in the design. So I'm going to have a 15-degree angle in here, and I'm going to have a 5-degree angle in here as well, too, and another 10-degree angle. And so by doing this, now all of a sudden we will have something that's maybe a little bit more controlled in how we're designing it. But it gives a lot of variation, because I like that look. And I want to do something similar on the other side. And this is one of the pieces of pattern paper. So I'm just going to take my paper cutter. You could also do this on a white piece of paper and then basically cut all of these angles on the white piece of paper, make them as a template, and then use them on your paper. But for this, because I happen to have lots of this paper, and I actually want to use this one multiple times in this background, I'm going to use this one as a template, and if I have other pieces that are really straight, I'll just use them on another project. It's not a big deal. Kind of depends on how you want to go about this. And this is maybe a little bit more specific than what I usually do with this. I usually do a lot of just rip and tear and have some fun, and this one I want to do a little bit differently. So the easiest way to make this work is that one little tick line that we made, we want to do it down the entire page, just so that you kind of have the area divided into 2. What I should have done with this is actually written the numbers behind each piece. So now I'm going to have to sit there and play with it like a puzzle and figure out which pieces should go with which pieces. So now that I have put these back together, I want to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I know which pieces are which. And the ones that I want to maybe keep in, I really like this one, so I think I want to keep that one. And again, these papers are a little bit longer, so I'm just going to have to cut them down as I go. And then maybe that one there. And again, I can make up my mind as I go whether or not I want to keep some of these pieces. I actually think I want to keep this one, and then these ones are just going to go and be a different shape. And I love this one with lots of little bits of the gold. So I'm going to take this one, and I am going to line it up and just use it to trace. You actually want to make sure that you flip it over just so that you're using the same side and the same direction. And maybe there's an easier way of doing this. This is just the way that I'm choosing to use it today. So now what I can do is that one goes in there like so. And so basically all we're doing is we're doing a little bit of paper piecing. We're playing around a little bit with what angles and what papers we have. And the way I cut that one didn't actually work super well, so I'm going to have to pull that up a little bit. We use that one to cover it up a little bit. What I would do next time is I would do this all the same lines on the papers and just cut out the sections that I would need. So the one side with the circle and angle maker worked really well, but then I'm realizing that because I'm trying to alternate papers, it's almost getting like a little bit challenging to get everything to kind of work together. So another way you can go about this is just cutting strips of paper off of each one of these and just playing around with how they fit together. So if you don't have a circle and angle maker, this is not a bad way to go. So we just want to make sure that bottom line is lined up, and then you can take either little strips or you can take larger strips. And if you don't care about getting perfect angles, this is not a bad way of doing it either. Because again, like, we don't necessarily have to have everything perfect and perfectly planned. I'm just trying to play around with something that I think might work and might look really good. So if you do have a circle and angle maker, you can make the choice of getting all those perfect angles. But what I found is that when I started actually playing around with piecing and everything else, I ended up kind of going in a completely different direction. So again, you have a choice. You can either cut a lot of these pieces into sections just with your paper cutter and see what happens. And the other option, if you want to be really particular, is use, again, a circle and angle maker, add in all those angles. And it's great if you're looking to have like perfect angles or you're looking for something very specific when coming up with your angles for your paper. So with these ones, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of my phone, and some of that is just so that I won't forget the order because there's a lot of pieces of paper here. So again, always take a picture with your phone, put it off to the side. You can use it as a reference. I'm also going to make a point to just pull all of these off to the side here. So I do have the center line that I created just to help me line things up. To add this to your page, you can use any sort of adhesive you want. You've seen me in the past use matte or gel medium, but today I'm going to use some Yes paste with some satin glazing liquid to thin my Yes paste. I learned this from Gloria Guilo at our class that I took from her. So basically when you add the Yes paste and the satin glazing liquid together, it thins the Yes paste to a point where it can be spread with a brush, which is what we're looking to do today. So I have some left over here from my class I took from her. It had to be a month or two ago. So the glue is still wet. So this glue can be mixed and stored for a really long time because the glue is still wet right now. So when you're using your glue, you want to add a little bit onto your surface. And that's just so that you end up with a really good adhesion with your glue and with your paper. And so I'm just basically just adding in a nice little thin coat of it here. And this glue is going to be quite thick, but it is going to be spreadable. Unlike the Yes paste just on its own, it can be a little hard to spread. I'm basically adding some to the back of my paper using an old magazine, because then what I can do is for every piece that I do, I can flip a page, and that way I prevent having glue on the front of my paper. And sometimes you may still end up with glue on the front of your paper, and just wipe it off with your finger and keep going. So this is a little bit of a different collage process than I usually do, just because I usually end up covering the top of my paper. Well, today we're not doing that. We're going to go in a completely different direction with this. A lot of collage artists do want the color of their paper to kind of shine through, and they want that texture that the paper adds. They don't want to seal it in. And where I usually seal it in is because I'm adding so much mixed media stuff on top. It was neat to try something a little bit different, to try a little bit of a different process regarding paper and using it in my art journal. And so I'm just basically just pressing that down. And the key to this is trying to keep your hands from getting too sticky. I want to make sure that's good. I want to make sure that we don't see any of that white paper on top. Because my hands are sticky, I'm just using another piece of magazine paper just to rub that. I want to make sure that's sticking on really well and is looking really good. So I'm just flipping that, and then I'm going to come back in and add in my next piece. And so basically we're doing this with all of our pieces. So all we're doing basically is just adding in a little bit of our glue. We're going to add some glue to the back of our piece. And so with this one, it's a little short. So what I'm doing is I'm having it run up along the top there, and I'm going to have this larger piece that's going to cover up the fact that I don't actually have that all the way to the top. So I'm just kind of adjusting these as I go to make them work for the paper. And by the time we actually add in all of our other elements to this page, you won't even notice, but I just wanted to show you that this is an option for making sure you kind of get that really nice look that you're looking for. And especially if you haven't gone and made sure you had perfect angles, that's a way of being able to hide maybe some of those mistakes. I'm using a brush I don't care about. This is one that is probably going to ruin your brushes. I have started using a really nice brush soap that seems to get them pretty much clean. But again, I would start with something you don't care as much about for this process, because then at least if you glue it together, it doesn't matter. And if you can use some of the soap that I suggest in the description below, that can also be a really great way of just getting them clean again, so you don't have to replace your brushes all the time. And you can always find all of the materials below in the description, which papers I used, what collections I used, how a little bit more about the mediums that I'm using, and that's just another way you can support this channel. So thanks so much for your support. And I know I'm doing something that's a little bit different than I normally do regarding collage, but I hope that you're enjoying maybe a little bit of a different process and a different way of doing things. So this works especially well if you are looking to try to keep the paper the color that you want, where you don't want to add in medium on top, or maybe you don't want something as shiny, maybe you want something that's a bit more matte. This particular technique will work really well in those instances. And for me, I'm always trying to mix up my style, mix up how I do things, because it can be easy just to fall into your same habits. And this is about just, again, creative play. This particular video, I usually try to put a lot of planning into my videos. This one was really, I just wanted to do something Christmassy. I've been so busy lately that I haven't had a lot of time for my own creative practice. So I thought, well, why not? Why don't I just experiment and play, see what I come up with, and just share it with you as a kind of go along and see kind of what happens. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, if you could just like and share this video, every time you hit that like button, that just helps more people see this video, that helps my channel grow, and that's just a really amazing way you can support me. So thank you so much for your support and for taking the time to watch these videos, and I hope that you're getting a lot from them. I would love to see your comments below about what you're learning, or even what you get out of this video, or even what you like to do with collage. I'd really love to see your comments. So after we've added in all of our pieces of paper and we've glued them down and cut off the edges, you can see that looks really tidy. It looks really nice and really sharp. It adds all of these colors together that are part of this pattern paper, but I do find it too bright. It's going to be competing with the images on top. So what do? Because we haven't sealed this in, instead of having to use paint or some sort of wet medium, we can actually add in a little bit of ink. So what I've done is I've grabbed a little bit of this evergreen bough. So this is a really nice green color that I think is going to complement what we already have going on. I'm just adding a very thin layer, just kind of brushing it on with my little blending brush here. I got these ones off of Amazon. I know there's a lot of more expensive ones available out on the market, but I find that these work pretty much the same. I actually was at a show and we all had different blending tools from different manufacturers, and I figured out that pretty much they were all the same. I don't know if they're all manufactured in the same place or what, but at the same time, I did find that there was a lot of similarities between them, to the point where I wouldn't pay 2 or 3 or 4 times what these ones were worth for more expensive ones. So if you're looking for a new blending brush, these ones that I got on Amazon are really, really good. I found that I had really good results with them. So they're kind of my go-to at the moment. And so I'm a little bit lazy with my ink blending. I've gotten a little darker here than I really want to, but that's okay. I'm just going to start by maybe doing the bottom third with the evergreen bough, because I'm going to be adding in some little buildings and some trees and some other things. Adding in a little bit of green to the bottom, where you would usually have green areas, I thought would work really, really nicely. And then for the next area, I'm going to add in a little bit of tumbled glass. I don't want this to be really, really bright blue. I want this just a very subtle blue. And just because of the quality of these papers and just how it looks, you're looking at a very, very subtle blend here. We're not looking at really bright, really contrasting. We're looking at a lot more subtle. I just really want to take a lot of those cream areas and just settle them down a little bit. And if you've been following me a while, you know I always like trying to create a little bit of cohesion with these really busy backgrounds. I've had students go well, how can I add all these papers together and have them work? And I tell them you can end up with all sorts of interesting things if you just add in some layers of paint, if you add in some layers of ink. It's just a really nice way of just having everything feel like it all belongs together. And it helps I'm already using pattern paper that works together. And I might even add in just a touch of this weathered wood. This is going to add a little bit more of grayishness to certain areas of the paper. And I think that will just kind of help that have a little bit more of a softer look. So I find that for some reason that tumbled glass is looking very similar to that green color that I was not really expecting. You can see in areas where I got my glue on top, because they are resisting the ink, but that's only in a few places, so I'm not too fussed about that. Before I complete this one, I'm going to add a little bit of vintage photo just around the edges. I'm looking for a vignetting look. That's all I'm looking for, is just, again, add a little bit of warmth, pulling in a lot of those browns and all those other colors that we already have, and just kind of going in just a little bit nice circular motion, and kind of rubbing it out a little bit to try to mix with the other colors. Just a fun way of just playing around. Add a little bit of vignetting, adding a little bit of that warm brown tone. I do have a lot of warm brown tones in this paper, so I thought that would work really, really well. Just kind of bring your eye to the center. So even though I'm only about halfway through my advent calendar, I've already been given tons and tons of ephemera. So I wanted to show you some of the ones that I want to put on here. So they had these beautiful little trees, these gorgeous little houses. I'm just going to be adding all of these in. I'm hiding in things like, I don't like that stand there, so I could make the choice of cutting it out, but instead what I'm going to do is just add in like another little tree, add in another little building, and just kind of cover up some of these things. And then this way I can create just a little bit of a scene. Because again, I'm thinking Christmassy. I really love this type of stuff for Christmas, because as much as I love drawing and painting my own stuff, I honestly really sometimes enjoy just playing around with some pre-made things. It gets me creating, it gets things down really quick, and I just really love the look of it. So I'm looking for some sort of arrangement kind of like this. You can see now that because I've muted this paper, this is no longer competing. If I had not muted the paper a bit, added a little bit of ink, this would completely fall to the background. And then there's also some stars, and I kind of like the idea of like the Star of David, and then maybe adding in a few other stars to this. And if you know me at all, you know how I can't just leave things without at least a little bit of a mixed media feel to them. So with this one, I'm going to be adding in some of this Aleene's glitter snow. I bought this a few years ago just to try out more of a craft product over maybe some regular mediums. So this is very similar to either a fiber paste, a light molding paste. I'm just going to take a piece of paper out of my magazine. I don't want this getting on the other pages of my journal. I like this glitter snow. It has a little bit of glitter already in it. And so I want to think about how high I'm going to have some of my trees, because there's some taller trees. So I want to add in like basically just a little landscape. So all I'm doing is just taking a little bit of this glitter snow. And part of it is I do want to use this stuff up. I've had it for a few years. It's time to start using it or get rid of it, because I find that a lot of my mediums, they only last so many years. You can't store them for 10 years and expect them to still be good. You really gotta use them in a semi-timely manner before they completely harden up. And so all I'm doing is basically just adding in a little bit of this glitter snow with a really small palette knife. And this is where I could add in and make more of a hill in some areas. And then you could have it drop down a little bit. This is just a fun way of just adding a little bit of texture to this. And what's nice about this too is now it feels like now all my buildings have a place that they're sitting instead of just kind of floating in midair. And that's the thing with using ephemera over and doing your own drawings and other things, is figuring out how do you make it as part of the scene without it feeling like it doesn't fit. And so I'm adding a pretty thick layer. I'm fine with that. And I'm just going to again curve it up, curve it down, make it look like a hillside full of snow. So now I want to play around with my placement of things. We can actually put our ephemera pieces straight into the snow. So what I want to do is I want that area in the snow, but I do want a little bit of it still popped up. So where I would usually not add in a lot of dimension to my Archibald pages, right now I'm going to be using a variety of thin and thicker pop dots. And so basically I'm just adding in a foam dot here, and that just helps that pop up. So I can basically put it in, and that has a place for it to sit. And so it's going to basically be sealed in to that paste, and at the same time have a spot up there where it's looking like a dimensional tree. For the next tree, I'm going to be using what are called thin 3L foam squares. These ones are about half the height of a regular foam square. So this is a way of just adding in some height, but also adding in a little bit of variation in your height so that not everything is the same height. You want to basically just kind of hover everything. Make sure you're happy with it, because once stuck down, you're not going to really want to move it. So you kind of get the idea of where I'm going with this, where you want to make sure there's at least a couple points of adhesion. And basically all we're doing is just creating a little Christmas village look. And I like where I've gone with that snow, but I actually want to add in just a few little touches of snow out in front. I want this to look like these are not just sticking out, but they're actually part of the snowbank. So along the bottoms there, I'm just adding just a touch of that snow on top. You can kind of go back and forth. It just takes a little bit of work and a little bit of bravery with that palette knife just to get those areas in. So the last thing I'm just going to throw in is just a few of these snowflakes. I love these designs. I like that they have little feathers and they have all sorts of little interesting design elements within the stars themselves. That for me is just something that really appeals to me in the design. And so I'm doing the full-size foam squares for the large one. I'm doing the half-size foam squares for the small ones. Again, slight changes in dimension. That can go a long way for having a piece feel really finished. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do this week for this project, I was thinking about how we all have such a diverse holiday season. For some of us, it might be time for a lot of family, a lot of joy, and maybe just a little bit of chaos. While others of us, this might be a time of loss for us. We may have gone through something really traumatic. We may have lost someone we loved. It can be a lonely and isolating time of year as well. So whatever your Christmas experience, I think it's really important that we process our emotions and take some time to reflect on our Christmas experience as it is this year, what we maybe hope for a Christmas experience this year, or even what we've experienced in the past. I know for myself, it's just been this whirlwind of busy. I felt like we just were at summer and now we're 10 days from Christmas. And it's a great season, but I have been completely overcommitted. And a month ago, I did have to say goodbye to my sweet rabbit Mocha, and I still haven't really processed that either because I've been so busy. There hasn't been a lot of time for processing. So for me, it's going to be a bit of a different Christmas than normal. I usually have a lot of time to be really present in the season, to anticipate the season, and to reflect and enjoy the process. This year, it's been a crazy marathon. But I did get the house decorated, I have baked, I've sent Christmas cards, but it's been more going through the motions and really enjoying the process. It just hasn't been the same leisurely pace as I usually enjoy. A lot of my reflection has been done actually sitting in church. I've been talking a lot about the idea of like peace and joy and what the season's really about. And I guess that's what I'm really hoping for the next few weeks. And so that's what I'm writing around my border here is basically some of the ideas that I had towards Christmas, what I'm hoping to have in this season, to maybe have a slightly more peaceful and joyful Christmas and not have it be a time of just chaos and going from one thing to another, but just to have these moments of reflection, to maybe light some candles and just have some time of peace. So I hope you've enjoyed this process of playing around with papers and collage and adding some mixed media feel to some of these more conventional papers. And if you've enjoyed this video, I would love to hear your comments. Please let me know what you liked about it, if you have any comments about what I've shared today, or any projects you'd like to see next. I'm always looking for some new ideas on what I can share on my channel. And if you're looking for any of the supplies I used today, check the description below. I always have the full set of links. Some of those ones are affiliate links, which means that I do get a small commission, but no cost to you. And that's just another way you can support this channel. So thank you so much for your support. And if you're interested in another video about collage, especially Christmas collage in the art journal, click here. This is what I did a couple years ago that I thought you'd really enjoy. So see you in the next video.